Unmasked with special guests, director Neil Berkeley, Dara Gottfried, and Gilbert Gottfried. Their new documentary, Gilbert, will be playing in theaters across the country. And now, coming to the stage, your host, Ron Bennington. And Neil Berkeley, Dara Gottfried, and Gilbert Gottfried.
Wow. So great to have you guys here tonight. And my first question right off the bat is, how did they ever talk you into doing this, Gilbert? This is your personal life, which we've known nothing about.
Wait, can Dara... All right.
Yeah.
Can you answer the question? It sounds like she shits on the movie a little bit. That's I want. Will you?
Well, basically, Gilbert really never agreed to do it.
I'm basically, I never agreed, but I'm too much of a pussy to say, get away from me.
But we also got to find out that's his entire personal life. You have to be drug into. Wife,
Yeah.
children, home. None of this was planned.
Yeah.
Correct. No, but it's kind of a cool story, actually. Neil, well, you could start. And then,
Yeah. So she's here. Astra Dorf is here somewhere.
Where's Astra?
Astra, you around? I had been talking about making a movie about Gilbert for a couple of years, and just saying to people, I'm going to make a movie about Gilbert Gottfried, and most people would roll their eyes or say it's a dumb idea or whatever. But I never, that's what Gilbert said. I never tried to call his agent or his manager. I never tried to reach out. And one day I was walking down 6th Avenue with Astra, and she said, what's your next movie going to be about? And I said, oh, I'm going to make a movie about Gilbert Gottfried, like it was actually happening. And she looked at me like she kind of panicked a little bit. And I said, what? And she goes, that's so weird you said that to me, because his wife is my best friend, and they live 2 blocks that way. And that actually happened. After never trying to do this. And so I had lunch with him the next day, and he said, this is dumb, don't make this movie. Do it when I'm dead or cured polio. And then 7 months later, Dara called and said, hey, just come out to New York and just start coming over and hanging out with your little camera, and maybe he won't notice that you're here.
Well, I said, he was, I really respected Neil's work, and I loved his 2 other movies, and I really could tell how passionate and he was about Gilbert, and how I just really trusted that he would be respectful and really honored Gilbert. And
I wrote a letter. Yeah.
Yeah, and he wrote a letter on parchment paper, which I thought was really classy. But finally I said, Gilbert couldn't make a decision, and I finally said, come for 1 week, try it, and if he's comfortable, stay, and if not, then at least you try. At least you try.
So, but we'll let Gilbert. The first time I went over there, Gilbert was by himself. Dara wasn't home, and I had my camera and a tripod, and the elevator opens up, and he's in his bathrobe with a cup of coffee, and I said, hey, I'm Neil. We met a few months ago. Dara said I can come make a movie about you, and he goes, oh. And then I said, did she tell you? And he goes, no. And then he turned around and just walked away.
And that's the end of the movie. It's unbelievable, folks. It's a beautiful, beautiful film.
It gets to the point. You know, not any wasted build-up. Yeah, because Neil had said to me, he goes, I've always wanted to make my dream has been to make a Gilbert Gottfried documentary. And I said, well, you should set your dreams a lot higher. You know, maybe start off with a Yakov Smirnoff.
Right. But Yakov is so excited to hear that right now. He's ready to do it. But, you know, you've always been so private about your personal life. I think that we all just assumed that you were a pervert. You know what I mean? We thought Gilbert has something to hide. And yet...
This film doesn't mean I'm not a pervert.
And yet you have an incredibly sweet family. And it's kind of a swerve. It's almost like Sixth Sense. You know, like you just can't believe this is Gilbert's life.
Neither can he.
Now, you also right away talk about in the film that it seems odd to you as well that you have a wife and children.
Yeah, I say in the film, and I mean it. It's like a Twilight Zone episode. You know, it's like those ones where it's like, where am I? Well, you're in the White House, sir. And what am I doing? Well, President Washington, you're... and so it's one of those where you just wake up and everything has changed.
Right. Dara, is that easy for you to hear, or do you think to yourself, I thought we built this together?
No. Yeah, of course, no. I mean, that's who Gilbert is.
Yeah.
You know? Of course. I knew it. I mean, we've been together over 20 years. He's not going to change.
But there's a great scene where he's on Howard, and they're like, we understand that you have a girlfriend, and you're married, and she's going to have a baby, and this is all 10 years in.
That's
That's the way the movie starts, with that clip.
That was our roadmap. We said, okay, let's just put that in the beginning, and then let's answer all those questions that Howard wanted to know.
Right.
So that's really what we tried to do with the 90 minutes.
But that's Howard knowing you for at least those 10 years, if not more.
That was like the most uncomfortable I was ever on that show.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
Which is hard to believe, considering some of the things you've done on that show. But that's what makes you uncomfortable, something kind of sweet and good. You know, you don't want to ever share that.
No. No. I'm not going to share it now.
The movie's out. It's called Gilbert. You can see all about him and his life.
At IFC Center on Friday.
This is amazing, too, that this is being... released to theaters. You know, that's I mean, a lot of people are doing these things that are going to streaming services or TV, but you get this released in theaters.
Yeah, it'll do everything by December. Everyone will have it in the world. But this weekend, Friday, I'll do the plug real quick. It opens in New York at IFC Center. Gilbert and I will be there with Dara, and Ira Glass is going to moderate our Q&A. Please come on out, and then it'll open in LA the weekend after, and like 15 or 16 other cities, and then everyone will have it. But yeah, we premiered at Tribeca, you know, so it's a big deal.
Well, you premiered to Tribeca to raves. People were going crazy for this right away, and like I said, it's one of those documentaries that I think is going to catch everybody by surprise, because it wasn't like, oh, they didn't have the same idea that you had of, let's do a documentary. It's not like you're Bill Clinton or something, you know. People weren't overly curious, but it's stunningly.
That's what the poster says.
Yes. This is the movie you never wanted to see, really, but it's great. But Neil, I'll ask you this: how long were you shooting before you start to say to yourself, "Okay, I see this coming together. I see."
I live in LA, and so I moved to New York, and I slept on my buddy's couch, and I shot for about 7 months, and we went to 15 cities. We went to Toronto, Mexico. I shot with Richard Belzer in France. So it took 7 months, and probably 3 or 4 months in, that's when Gilbert started to open up a little more, and we could kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. But some of the things, the end of the movie happened the first week we shot. So it was we saw things, but all the puzzle pieces had to come together.
You discovered a lot of stuff that you didn't.
I had no idea. So when I started making the movie, I didn't know Gilbert I knew he had a wife. I didn't really know Dara very well. I didn't know he had sisters. I didn't know he walked to their houses every day and was this really devoted family man. I didn't realize he was going to clubs every weekend, still hitting the road. There's so much that I had no idea. I just went there and hit record and saw what happened.
And the first real connection, and Neil will back this up. He one time said to me, you know, because I wouldn't even talk to him most of the time. and he said to me, goes, you know, on my phone, on the internet, I found a picture that they say is Marlon Brando blowing Wally Cox.
These are documentary filmmakers' trade secrets, so don't let this out.
I actually want to see that film.
He was the voice of Underdog. If you so he said to me, he goes, I said, you have this picture? And he said, yeah. And he goes, why? You want to see it? And I said, what the fuck is the matter with you? Of course I want to see it. Brando sucking Wally Cox's dick? I mean, why wouldn't you open with this?
You had that next to a contract.
Yeah, that's how I got him to sign.
But now, you did get to see it, right? Is it?
It's a photo.
Yeah.
And it's a long object, dick-like. And a guy who looks like Marlon Brando is gulping on it.
Yeah.
So I take it as fact.
Sure.
Yeah.
Neil, how did you get this picture? Already, this is the...
It's on the... We're going to lose the audience. It's on the internet.
Everyone's gone right now. That's hysterical. So that was the key for you. How long before you felt comfortable that this documentary?
I never did.
Never did.
No. Never felt comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Never wanted it done.
You're right. And it also doesn't
And
look...
I don't want to release.
Yes. Yeah, I don't.
Go see it.
But I notice a lot in the documentary, it's not like you're going for an action picture. A lot of times you're in a robe and just sitting. Dara saying, Gilbert, would you like to do this? No. I also picked up on this, Dara, that you say I love you to him quite a few times. Does he say it back?
We have kind of our own language.
Yes.
Well, the movie ends with Gilbert's version of that.
Yes.
I won't give it away,
Yeah.
but he has a way of... I've picked on it. He has a way of showing... The one thing I'll say is, when people see this movie, especially women just in relationships, they get really envious of how much they laugh together. There's a moment in the movie where I was over at their house one day, and Gilbert was gone. And Dara said, hey, do you want to hear some of Gilbert's love notes? And I was like, yes, of course, please get them out. And she goes, and she's not giving it away at all. She goes over and pulls out these cards, and she reads, and she goes, this one says, happy anniversary. I hope you have a wonderful day. And then in Gilbert's scribble, it says, Dara, go fuck yourself 500 times.
It's beautiful. It really is. It's a lovely, lovely
Kind of
sentiment.
brings a tear to your
Yes, it does.
Actually, the best part
Dara,
about
yes.
this, Dara corrects herself because it actually says happiness on your anniversary. So it was a card, not
It's
from a
from the dollar
husband to a
store.
wife.
Yeah.
It was a card from a friend to a couple that he probably got at the dollar store.
Yeah, it's from the dollar store.
There are also scenes in the film about your travel practices where you don't exactly go first class a lot when you're on the road.
Yeah, I take these buses.
The megabus.
Yeah, and I travel out there that way.
For people not like they run from like New York to D.C. to Philly to Boston, and they run out of Chinatown. People will call these the SARS buses. It's a lot of sickly people without any other way to travel. But you do that for what reason?
Yeah, I'm a cheap fuck.
So Dara, I said, I'm going to go to Philly with Gilbert. And she goes, okay, you need to get a megabus ticket. I said, what are you talking? Are you serious? She goes, yeah, get a megabus. And she goes, but don't tell Gilbert I pay the extra $3 so he sits in the front row by the window.
There's
And we
an
get there.
upstairs so we can look out the front.
If you've ever seen the megabus, I think it's up on 34th, but you stand on the sidewalk in the exposed tempered weather and you wait for the bus. And I said, Gilbert, what do you do if it's raining? And he goes, oh, they know me. I sit under the tent with them. And sure enough, we walk up and all the bus drivers are like, hey, Gilbert, come on over.
And you've got a lot of other comedians, actually some of the funniest people in the world. Talk about
Bill
Gilbert.
Burr, Jay Leno, Jeff Ross, Dave Attell, Alan Dwight Bell, Richard Belzer, Howie Mandel, Jay Leno. I'm going to forget someone, but, huh? Oh, sorry.
Somebody wants a rum and coke.
Oh, yeah, no, the comics were amazing. We sat down and they all gave, like Bill Burr, I walk in my office and he's standing there. And I said, oh, we're going to do the interview. He goes, yeah. He goes, by the way, I don't know Gilbert. I've never met him. He goes, but if someone's going to make a Gilbert Gottfried movie, I should be in it. One real quick about the megabus. And the first time I heard Gilbert's real voice, we rode the bus to Philadelphia, and I get on the bus, and I'm like, oh, it's going to be boring because he's not going to talk to me. So we shoot for like 10 minutes, and then I put the camera away. And this really pretty girl sits next to me, and I'm like, oh, great, I'll just talk to her the whole time. So I talked to her on the bus, and we said goodbye when we got to Philadelphia. And he goes, before we go to the hotel, he goes, hey, you should give me your phone number in case something happens. I can call you. And I go, okay, when I get to my room, I'll call you, and that'll be my number. If you need me, just hit the number and call me back. So I called him, and when you talk to Gilbert on the phone, he doesn't say goodbye. He's just gone all of a sudden. But this time he was lingering, and I was like, what's he doing? Why does he want to talk to me? And all of a sudden he goes, okay, so are you going to fuck that girl on the bus?
Well, Friday, this opens. This beautiful, beautiful film opens. IFC Saturday.
And I always refer to her from then on as Bus Pussy.
It was a running joke.
Yeah. Could that be the sequel, Bus Pussy? If you love Gilbert.
We were getting on the train one time, and he goes, so you won't fuck any of these train girls?
See, train pussy's different
Yeah.
from bus pussy.
What was it like for you to hear these comedians talking about your abilities? Is that easy for you to let in?
Yeah, it was kind of like when Patrick Swayze sees his own dead body in Ghost.
Wait, was that Ghost or in real life when that happened? So, Dara, you saw something. It's not easy for him to hear those kind of compliments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. But I mean, it's better. I guess compliments are better than insults. So.
Right.
Yeah. Sure.
When I met the comics, every one of them, as I would leave, like I'll never forget Jeff Ross. I interviewed him the day Gary Shandling died, and I'm leaving, and he's standing in the doorway, and he goes, "Hey, don't mess this up. We love Gilbert. This is important." I mean, and they all said some version of that, like, "Don't mess this up."
Well, what I thought was kind of interesting watching the film is they're talking about Gilbert, and they're saying hilarious, but also unique and peculiar. And I'm like, each one of those people could have been talking about themselves. There's nothing normal about any of our biggest comedians. You're all like, oh, that's an odd way to live. But it is, right?
And one thing I just remembered is like when they were asking for people to be in the film or the comics, they reached out to Jim Carrey, and Jim Carrey's reason for not doing it was he was on trial for killing his ex-girlfriend.
That's how bad.
Yeah.
That's how badly people don't want to work with me. I figure he could have just said no, but I'm flattered
Yeah,
that he
sure.
went that far.
That is, well, I'm going to stay away from it because he's already being sued. Why follow that down? But these were amazing acts. And I heard from someone who just talked to Attell, who just saw the movie the other day and was blown away by it. And I've watched it twice now. And I was just stunned how great it is and how the whole thing just came together. What's it like to look back at your career, Gilbert, with, and I'm going to ask Neil in a moment about getting tape from all these great, great moments. But what is that like for you to see yourself as a young man and you're killing, and 10 years later you're somewhere you're killing? Is that something you can allow to come in?
To me, it's like what I envision hell to be. Like you die and then you're seated somewhere and they go, okay, this is your life here and you're going to be forced to watch it.
You couldn't enjoy. You can't enjoy it at all.
Yeah. I was like, I've seen it about 3 or 4 times and I cringe each time. It's painful for me.
Can you
So
can you
go
say,
see
hold
it.
on,
What?
Can you say, but it's,
But you like the movie.
yes.
Come on, Gilbert.
I was fucking watching Colbert going, God damn it, don't do the hell thing, because it makes me... Someone called me last week and they go, boy, Gilbert really hates this movie, doesn't he?
But I will say this: I think at Gilbert's most uncomfortable is where he's at his funniest. As we were just coming down the steps here, and you have to walk down the steps to get into the Village Underground, Gilbert is saying, this is the worst moment of my whole life. So I think it might be a tad overblown sometimes with your complaints.
You asked about footage. There's footage in the movie. Of course, we show all the stuff from the career and all that, but there's footage in the movie of Gilbert and his mother and grandmother and 2 sisters in New York in the 90s. So one reason I'm so happy I got to do this is when you watch it, you'll meet a woman named Arlene Gottfried, and that's Gilbert's sister, and she is one of the most special, beautiful human beings that's ever lived. And she's a 4 times published photographer who took pictures of New York and the Lower East Side, like when it was like bombed out Berlin, just scary, beautiful, beautiful books. So do yourself a favor and look up Arlene Gottfried tonight and look at her photography. She's amazing. I was on the internet one day. I was like, I saw a short film about her, and there was footage. And I called her and I said, Arlene, what is this footage of you and Gilbert in the 90s? And she goes, oh, I used to carry a VHS camera around. And I was like, I'm making a movie about your brother. Can I have that footage? And she goes, yeah, of course. But yeah.
You could say, at the risk of offending Gilbert, she steals the movie, because there's things about her that are just mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And the connection that you guys have is mind-blowing. And again, that's something that we never thought of with Gilbert, of here is a guy who is not only loved, but really knows how to show love and devotion. It ruins everything. It ruins everything.
I think, Gilbert, I think you would agree that having Arlene's moment is...
Yeah, that was one of the few moments where I thought, I'm glad this film got made, just to show her.
Yeah.
And that she got a chance to see it.
Yeah. It's, well, she's just beautiful. She's just a beautiful person. And then you find out that she's a real artist. And also greatly, a real eccentric as well. I don't want to give away some of the things you do, but a lot of photographers don't just go and join the subject after that. That kind of stuff it's one of the things that makes me love New York City.
Yep.
Because it happens all the time that you meet someone and then you find out they have this really side life that is just mind-blowing. And
when I made it, I went into it and I said, this is going to be the Broadway Danny Rose. This is going to be a New York moment. Like, New York's a huge character. The music is jazz. It's, you know, he was born in Coney Island. And his sister, she passed away a couple months ago. And she was honored on the front page of the New York Times and a big spread with all her photos. And I realized that's why I made this, because, you know, I made this document for her and also for Gilbert, because, you know, you do this, usually these things happen after someone passes away. So I wanted to do it now when they can enjoy it. And she got to see it. I got to sit in a room with her and watch this, and she loved it. And I'm really thrilled that I got to do that.
Yep.
It's really wonderful. And one of my favorite shots in the movie, and it's just a real New York scene, is like you're doing the chemotherapy stuff and then showing the two of you on a bus just coming back. And it's like everything that's really great and really hard about New York is in that one scene. And if you keep your eyes open in this city, there's always something like that going on, you know.
Thank you.
It's an amazing, amazing thing, and I'm so glad that you were able to do with that. And I'm completely interested in her work now. As well.
I told Gilbert one day, I said, you know, you're just like, you're like a classic New Yorker. And he goes, you mean Jew?
Yeah, because that sounds like one of those, like, closeted anti-Semitic like, oh, you're one of them big city boys.
I'm glad you picked up on it, Gilbert. That was really
Gilbert's teaching me Yiddish.
Yeah, he's such an outsider to anything vaguely Jewish. Like, he would come up to me and go, oh, you know, what does fakakta mean? And then he was at my house yesterday, and he was looking at something. There was like some little toy, a dreidel, and he was holding it like if a caveman.
An anti-Semitic caveman.
Yeah. If a caveman saw an iPhone, you know, like. And he was like, what is this? Do you spin it? You know.
It is always interesting, though, that I think every year you get older, you get more and more Jewish. There's something.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like if we would have caught you at 25, not so Jewish. Now, really Jewish.
And the younger you are, the more you think you can escape being a Jew.
It's like the Peter Pan syndrome. Not me. It's not going to happen to me. So at a certain point for you in your career, when did you feel like, okay, this is the career I kind of wanted to have? Because you've had some amazingly high marks, but you're still out there slugging it out on the road. But at what point did you think, okay, they'll do a film about my life, and look, we'll pack a place out for people. These people haven't even seen the film yet, but are interested.
That's why they're here.
If I would have done this next week, just an empty spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'd be doing the show for the waitress.
But at what point did you say to yourself, okay, this is a real show business career? Because you have one. And you were a kid who grew up loving show business.
Yeah. And it was, it's funny because like the more and more I'm in the business, the more and more I feel like, and I know a lot of people in the business have this feeling like one day the gig will be up, you know,
Right.
the jig will be up. It's like you're getting away with something. Like I feel like show business is a party I snuck into, and any minute a guy will come over with a clipboard and say, Yeah, your name's not on this.
There's a part of this film, and if anybody has to deal with it, it's Dara, but Gilbert brings things home from every hotel and motel. What kind of stuff is he?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, he's got a routine. He checks into a hotel, and the first thing he does is he goes to the front desk and he asks for extra. Do you happen to have any extra toothbrushes, toothpaste, shampoo, conditioner, sewing kits,
Yeah, because
shower caps?
I had
mouthwash?
found out I was already like my thing used to be. I go into the room. First thing I do is go right to the bathroom and like say, okay, skin lotion, shampoo, conditioner. And then I would see these little signs said, "Did you forget anything?" And I thought that was a whole new world.
So when we moved in together, he used to have a 2-bedroom apartment. The entire second bedroom was filled with huge boxes of all of these things from hotels. And he had Eastern Airlines soaps. He had like the little Pan Am soaps. I mean, it was a collection like you wouldn't believe.
A collection is a nice way to put it.
Yeah. I had soaps from the Spruce Goose.
We went to Big J Ogerson's house one time, and I shot this. We couldn't put it in the movie, but we go in, and Jay goes, "Gilbert, you want a glass of wine?" And he goes, yeah. He goes, "Do you have a cup? You have like a paper cup?" And he goes, "Yeah." So he cleaned out a Starbucks cup, and he goes, "Fill it all the way up." And he fills it up, and he goes, "Okay, do you have a lid?" And he puts the lid on, and he goes, "Okay, now tape that up and put it in a bag." And Jay goes, "Are you getting this wine to go?"
He comes home from trips and he's so proud when he could get a free bottle of wine from the airline stewardess, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes if they recognize me, the first thing I think is, how can I get something free?
We were at LA Comedy Festival, and it was Gilbert's birthday, and they gave him a big box of donuts that had "Happy Birthday" written on the donuts. And I look over, and he's really like concerned and anxious. And I go, "What's wrong, Gilbert?" And he goes, "How the fuck am I going to get these donuts home?"
Now, in the meantime, he has this beautiful apartment. The elevator opens right into it. It's just gorgeous. It's very, very nice every way around. All Dara, would you be living in that apartment if you had never met her?
No.
No.
Well, I talk about it in the film, and it's true. Like, the idea of matching furniture seems so weird, because growing up, and then when I was on my own, it was the same way. But just even as a kid, I remember there would be like one chair, like at the kitchen table. One chair was a wooden chair, another chair would be vinyl, and it's like, we got that chair, we found it somewhere, that someone died. We took. And the idea of matching cups and glasses and silverware was something I couldn't imagine.
It's true. It does happen, Gilbert. You can. I mean, I don't know how to tell you this because of the way you get soap and shampoo, but there's a place called Dwayne Reed. I just want to take you in there, show you around. But Dara, you allow him to do that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So actually, the soap story. Back to the soaps.
Yeah.
When you were moving out of your old apartment.
Oh, I asked my sister, because Dara said we can't ship all these soaps to the new apartment. So I had all these tiny. They used to have soaps on planes, like individual soaps, and I had all of these like soaps that were about an inch big. and that you could wash your hands once. They
Right.
were gone. So I said to my sister, I said, "Do you need any soap?" and she said, "Well, I could use soap, but I don't want those tiny ones." So I took a bunch of unwrapped them, and then I stayed up the whole night, holding them under hot water, and with all my might, pressing them together. And they came out pointed at different sides, like it looked like some weird, black magic.
He showed up with a garbage bag, like a huge garbage bag full of these soaps that he stayed up all night making. And he brought it to his sister on Mother's Day and said, "Here."
Someone's going, "Oh, it's a horrible present."
It's sweet, right?
Well, you saved the $1.79, so it's
Yes.
But is this like an urge that you couldn't walk out and leave that shampoo and soap behind? Right?
No.
You can't do it.
Yeah. That I don't understand.
Yeah.
I was at some event a few years ago, and I remember someone came over to me and said that she worked for the Amsterdam News. And that was a newspaper in Harlem that came. And I remember standing there with her going, "I wonder if I should ask her for a free subscription."
If there's ever anything being shot, I never got to shoot this, and it really bums me out. But if there's ever production around town, Gilbert will walk and just kind of linger around till someone says, "Hey, Gilbert Gottfried," and he'll go, "Hey, where's craft service?"
Jack Nicholson's looking out the window. Oh, Gilbert's got a part here. You have done a ton of movies, and a lot of that stuff shows up in the film. Lots of TV. What was the first big break for you, Gilbert? What's the first thing that you said, "This takes me up a notch"?
The first big break that was actually a big break, I had two false big breaks. One was Saturday Night Live, and that was the worst time. It was right after the original cast left, so it would be like if you, in the mid-season of Friends, they changed the entire cast.
And you were Joey. Gilbert is Joey.
Yes. And so they hated us before we got on the air. And then the next one was Thicke of the Night.
I remember Thicke of the Night.
Yeah.
It was you and Belzer were on there, right?
Yeah, and it was Alan Thicke's talk show, and they said it was going to knock Johnny Carson off the air.
Yeah.
And if you notice, Johnny Carson's not on the air now.
Alan, congratulations, Alan Thicke.
So we got the last laugh on that one.
I remember that show. They really didn't even define your role. It didn't seem to me like I
Oh, it was changing like in between commercial breaks. And then the thing that wound up to be, I was like Catch a Rising Star. And after I went on, some woman came over to me and she said she works for MTV. And she's having some people come in and audition tomorrow. And would I come in? And I went in, I just started improvising stuff, and they filmed it. Next thing I know, people are recognizing me on the street without telling me. They took my audition tape and chopped it up and started showing it on TV. And that was the first really good exposure I had.
But it's so funny, and you see this in the film because Neil did an amazing job of going back and finding some of these clips. And Gilbert is so young and so baby-faced, but everything about him is old. His entire personality is really like an old, grouchy guy. And you're like, how did this kid do this? I remember on Thick of the Night.
That's so funny.
Everyone has tried everything on TV now, but it used to be so conservative to do a talk show. And Gilbert would just go up to the camera and just be, eat. He's saying it to a camera, and people were like pulling back away from their TVs. No one has ever come straight at you before, and you were so young. You were like in your early 20s.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
That scares me.
Yeah.
And before any of you start screaming out, please, please, I'll do it for you. I know next you're gonna say, hey, can you do Alan Thicke singing the theme song? That he wrote and composed for Thick of the Night. Okay. I hate to pamper to the crowd, but if you won't shut up about it, it was Mama don't leave the later. I'm on the road tonight. Everyone needs a dream to hold on. I'm gonna make it on my own. Running in the thick of the night. Under the city light. Running in the thick of the night.
How is this show not still on? It's just amazing to me. You also catch some of his more controversial moments, including when you talked about Pee Wee Herman on TV. And again, you know how a lot of times you look back, oh, we thought that was shocking then, but not so much now? No. It still would be shocking on TV today to do that bit.
Yeah, I said I really sleep better nights knowing Pee Wee Herman's been arrested. If masturbation's a crime, I should be on death row.
No,
and right now my right hand is like Superman. I can take charcoal and crush it into a diamond.
You didn't run that past anybody?
No.
No. Primetime TV, everybody watching.
And how did they know he was masturbating? Did they dust for prints? I remember when I got off stage, Sam Kinison was there, and he was like laughing his ass off because he said everybody, no one was worried about me. They were all worried what he was going to do.
Yeah.
And he worked perfectly clean and professional.
Is there an excitement to bringing that kind of shock to America? Like, does it feel good to know that you got one past them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although it didn't go past that. I think someone had told me they added the 5-minute delay on the Emmys after my performance, which I'm very proud of.
I've seen Gilbert do a million jokes and say a million things. The only time I ever saw him hesitate, and it's in the movie, you can see him do it. He was talking to Dick Van Dyke, and they sing together in the movie. It's amazing. Like, I got to meet Dick Van Dyke and shot him in for the movie. But at the end of it, Gilbert's about to make a very off-color joke, and Dick Van Dyke doesn't work blue at all. He doesn't curse. He's very straight-laced. And Gilbert's about to make the joke, and he goes, and and he looks at him for a moment, and then he says it. But it's like, it's the only time I ever saw him hesitate.
You hesitated, but said, "No, I got to go for it."
Yeah, that's the way my mind operates.
You sing the song from Bye Bye Birdie.
Oh, yeah.
And it was that one, because you're like an encyclopedia
Oh,
for older movies like that.
Yeah, I sang 2 duets with him, Put on a Happy Face and Supercalifragilistic. And afterwards I said, because I meant it, I said, I just sang a duet with Dick Van Dyke. And then there was a pause, and I said, and I think I came.
He seemed to be in good spirits about it, though, right? Don't you think? Yeah. Well, you do your podcast. You bring in some of these folks from show business from over the years. They do the show. These are always amazing interviews because you go so deep with it, and then within a week or two, they die. This literally could be Murder, She Wrote, where Gilbert is the person who ends up with the last interview with everybody.
Some of them have died like the night before. Like that happened with Jack Carter.
Right.
Oh,
Jack
yeah.
Carter died the night before.
So, you still bring him in, or what do you do?
Yeah.
There he is for his last show. What is it? What you must have been a little kid when you fell in love with these kind of things, right? These kind of movies, old
Oh, yeah.
old TV shows. When did it click for you? What age were you?
Well, it's when I was growing up, the best film school in the country was in your living room. Because TV would show old movies all the time. And, one channel had the horror movies. The other one had the gangster movies, other westerns. And so I saw all of that. And, I mean, in particular, I fell in love with, like, the old monster movies.
Yeah. Well, what was odd, too, because I had the same experiences, I don't think any of us knew that they were old movies. You're just
No.
like, this seems as exciting as anything else.
Yeah, you were finding them for the first time.
Yeah.
So it was, like, brand new.
So out of everybody that you got to meet from that era, who was the biggest one for you? Who was the...
Janet Ann Gallo, right, Gilbert?
Is
Yeah.
that right?
Janet Ann Gallo. I was like the one fighting to get Janet Ann Gallo. She's like, I don't know, in her 70s or 80s now. But when she was a little kid, she was the little girl in Ghost of Frankenstein with Lon Chaney Jr. and Bela Lugosi. And she told a story about how, like, she used to play hide and go seek with Lugosi and Chaney, and they'd be in their full monster makeup.
Yeah.
And I thought I was so envious of that.
Sure.
Yeah, like as I thought, boy, that would have been my ideal child.
The other thing is you'll read any show business bio, too. Like, you'll suddenly start to quote bios from people. I'm like, I had no idea that guy wrote a book. I don't know why he would write a book about his life. But you go for every one of them. Still haven't read Catcher in the Rye, but...
That was how I would get Gilbert warmed up, like that story about Marlon Brando, because I learned that I could relax him if I would tell him a dirty story or like celebrity gossip. Gilbert loves celebrity gossip. When we traveled, I'd get him like trashy tabloid magazines because he loves it.
It's like practically on every episode of my podcast, I'll bring up both Cesar Romero and Danny Thomas.
Yep.
There is a part in the movie, and I don't want to give it away, too, where you're at St. Jude's. And Danny Thomas, of course, reminded me, because this is this hospital that Danny Thomas started. And you have to follow a night of people who've been through a lot of stuff. And again, I didn't know how it would work out. I don't even want to give it away for people. It's really uncomfortable. But but there's nothing about you who goes, all right, this is a different kind of room. I better watch what I say.
Yeah.
You just go for your act.
Yeah, I was worried before because I thought, because there was a guy right before I went on who was talking about how his daughter was diagnosed with cancer and talking about having to drive her for treatments. And I thought, oh, God, in anything I do now is going to be suicide. And so that was one of those moments.
Well, you know, your sister in the film, and as well, of course, as real life, is going through that. But she brought up about how you could make her laugh through all that. And I don't think it was a comfortable thing for you to be there at all yourself.
Yeah, no, that was horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there was nothing that was going to keep you away from being there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, we never really knew Gilbert. We didn't know him at all. You're going to find out in this film, Gilbert, which is out. And is it GilbertMovie.com for people?
GilbertMovie.com, yeah.
Well, you are going to see that Gilbert, as hysterical as he is and as funny as he is, probably only shared one slice of his life with us, the really, really funny part.
Doug Benson gave it what I think is the most. I love what he said. He said that he called it the filthiest and sweetest movie he'd ever seen.
Yeah,
and I thought we did it. We did it.
It's really well said, because it is. And when you're getting into these sweet, I mean, he shares what he's like as a dad, and it's the kids are better than you would think. They really are. I was really hoping to see Bela Lugosi as a child, and then just when you're like, oh my God, this is adorable, you know, Gilbert is in another one of his shock spots.
There's a joke in the movie that halfway through shooting, Dara said, if you put that Mackenzie Phillips joke in the movie, I will never talk to you again. And I said, We'll talk after you see the movie.
Yeah.
And it's in the movie. To me, it's like it's the most Gilbert joke that he does on stage.
I wasn't happy about
Dara hates it.
Yeah.
So is that the only stuff that he's ever done that you weren't a fan of, or is
There's a few things,
Yes.
but you know, I mean, he doesn't listen to me.
Right.
I mean, you know.
So you definitely understand when people say that they're offended.
It scares me sometimes because I don't want him to get in trouble. You know?
Yeah. Well, you're a little late with that. With that hope. And that is, again, you want to see the movie because everybody remembers when Gilbert took the full brunt of the world. It was just his time. You know, it seems like everybody who's known now has to take some kind of shots for their celebrity. But you get to see a little more what it's like to be in the middle of that firestorm.
Oh, yeah.
And what's interesting to me is how much the rest of us kind of move on to the next thing. I mean, thank God we have Harvey Weinstein right now. But that's not going to last either.
And you know, during the making of this film, he was grabbing my ass.
This is another line for the poster, Gilbert.
And I had to blow him at one point, but he said that's the way to get into theaters. So I said, hey, take one for the team.
Now, how long to put the whole movie together?
The whole thing took about a year and a half. I shot with him for 7 months and a year and a half total. Yeah.
And when the shooting part of it was over, did you miss him, Gilbert?
No.
No.
I did.
That's not entirely. There was a couple times where I would get a phone call from Gilbert, and I'd be at the editors, and I was like, "Oh, Gilbert's calling," and he would remember things that he wanted to talk about. I did go back, and there were a few things that are in the movie that he thought he should say. So,
I thought one of the great scenes in the movie also is when you went back to your old neighborhood. It's always interesting to see that how connected you still are with that life there, even though you hadn't been back in a while. What was that like for you?
Well, that's like when you go back to places like from your childhood. In one way, it's like it was yesterday, and in another way, it was like a billion years ago. So it's that weird connection, and always, I don't find anything happy about it. Like,
Yeah.
look at the when it's always like depressing.
Yeah. Did it feel depressing to you when you were a kid, or because I know
think so. Yeah.
yeah. But because I know that you were somewhat of an outsider, you didn't like school, you didn't have a bedroom of your
Slept
own.
in the living room.
Yeah,
Yeah.
slept in the living room, in front of the TV. I mean, it kind of makes sense that you were in this weird training that you had no idea was going to take care of you the rest of your life.
And in fact, what shows what a weird kid I was and how I got into old show business so deeply. I remember it was either the first grade or maybe even kindergarten where the teacher was playing a game with us where she'd give us initials and we'd have to guess. So it's like, MM, Mickey Mouse, BH, Bob Hope. And I remember then she said OS. And me, the only little kid there, I leapt up excitedly and yelled, Onslow Stevens.
The oldest little kid in the world.
Yes.
Well, you've got this record of your life now, not just your personal life, but at this point in time, all wrapped up. Dara, what is that like for you to know that this exists now, somewhat as a document for people?
I think it's great because I feel like Gilbert was kind of one-dimensional in a way. Like people would always ask me, does he really talk that way? That's all they knew. So the fact that it sort of shines a light on this other part of him, I think it makes him even also like the whole comedy and tragedy thing. It sort of makes you understand a little more about why, he says what he does. Like, it's not because he's, evil or anything, it's because this is how he deals with tragedy through comedy. Sure. Right? I mean, the masks, right, Gilbert?
Yeah, I've always said, like, there's the comedy mask that's smiling and the tragedy mask that's crying. And, like, nowadays they go, oh, why are they together? That's so offensive. How can that mask be laughing when he's in such pain?
That's truly one of the fucking weirdest things I've ever heard in my life. And I will never forget it now.
And when she said one-dimensional,
Yeah.
it reminded me of a story when they were considering me for the parrot in Aladdin. Someone at Disney, it may have been Roy Disney or Katzenberg or whoever, who said, I don't know, he seems a little one-dimensional. And I said, it's a fucking cartoon parrot. You don't need Daniel Day-Lewis.
Neil, I can't imagine the stuff that made the cut on this, the stuff that you probably would have loved to get in, but you'd be running a mini-series right now.
Yeah, we've been putting a lot of it out on social media, Gilbert movie, at Gilbert movie. But there's going to be a cut of the movie. I think it's 2.5 hours now. It's going to be on the DVD. So there's so much. Yeah, I shot 400 hours for this. So there's a ton of stuff that didn't go in, and that's really painful to take those things out. But there's a million great things that we'll show the world eventually.
But yeah, that is great. But I also have to tell you, there's a real flow to the movie.
Thank you.
Like, it's a really great ride to watch this movie and to know that this really has been one of the funniest people of our generation. It's just amazing.
Everyone says this,
Yeah.
but please go. You're here at a live event. Go see it at a theater with people because you feel that laughter. There's a moment in the movie where these Nazis show up, and it's about 21 minutes in, and the whole time I'm like, wow, they're laughing, and they haven't even seen the Nazis yet.
You got to see the movie.
Yeah.
Because I was booked at a club in Chicago, and it was at a resort. And in this hotel, they had one entire floor that was for war reenactments.
Yeah.
Every war you can imagine.
Yeah, like Civil War, Korea, Vietnam, World War I, every war. And so I immediately rushed to World War II. And these Nazi officers saw me, and they ran over excited, going, "Oh, Problem Child was my favorite movie." And they're there with swastikas on their arm and going, "Can we do a selfie?" And I remember thinking, gee, the Third Reich actually wasn't so bad.
It's a crazy scene. I remember after I showed Gilbert the movie for the first time, he walks out of the room, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what he thought. He walks over and goes, boy, those Nazis were a gift from God.
There's no other way to sum that up, is there, folks? Those Nazis were a gift from God. Gilbert Gottfried, everybody. Dara Gottfried. Neil Berkeley, thank you so much for this.
Can I say thank you for doing this?
Thank you.
We've done a ton of press and a ton of things, but this has been so fun. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming out and doing this. And I'm on stage, the Comedy Cellar. This is fucking blowing my mind.
And since everybody is comedy fans, another reason that you'll want to see this film is in the film, Artie Lang is still alive. And it's amazing. It's amazing that you're able to capture that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And Artie will be there on Friday night.